What's going on, guys? Today I'm going to show you how to allow users to follow other users, essentially how to add friends and save that relationship in a database. This is a continuation of our Music Talk app. It's an app like Facebook, but people just talk about music. Pretty much the best idea ever. In previous videos, which you don't need for this one by the way, we set up a Node and Express backend, connected that to MySQL for our database, and set up a React project with React Router and Redux. All kinds of good stuff. I have a playlist going if you want to look that up and follow along. I'll put a link to that in the description. So this friends functionality will span over a couple videos. In this video, we'll just focus on the simple friends page, grabbing all the users from the database that the user is not friends with, and display that list to the user. Then in the next video, we'll allow the user to select and add friends, saving that relationship in the database. There will be two different routes on the server and two different database queries, or sets of queries, as you'll soon see. So I'm on the beautiful homepage. I'm going to sign up with a new user. And my server is not started. So here is the React project. We have the React project and the server. So I'm going to change directory into the server and run node index.js, the name of our file. Now the server is listening on port 8080, and I'll try this again. Hey, there we go. So we greet the user on the profile page, and now we want to add a friends link in the navigation when the user is signed in. Notice that these links change whether the user is signed in or not, which we did all of this in previous videos. So go into our React project, which we called client. Go to the source, components, we have our navigation, and we have, let's see, if the user is logged in, we will display these. So I'm going to duplicate this one by holding Option Shift and down. And that will go to find friends, which we will configure with React Router. And we'll just say friends in the link. We're going to want to also give this one, I'm using Tailwind, which we also set up. Some padding left 20. Let's give that some space from the other link. Awesome. And then we want to create that page. So if I go to pages, new file, which we'll call find friends.js. Do a const find friends, which for now we will just return an empty div. I'll build this out more in a second. Export default find friends. Save that. And we go ahead and add this into our index.js. We have our different routes here. You can put these in any order since we're using React Router version 6. So that was the find dash friends. And the element we want to render when we go to that is the find friends, which we can import from the pages folder. And looking good. Almost. There we go. that. Okay, so let's see. First, we'll just do a hard-coded array of usernames as we build out this page real quick, and then we will fetch from the database. So we'll say a couple usernames here. Say Jazz, sure. Beethoven, because he's still alive. I wish. So this parent div, that'll be the container around our little find friends area here. So we'll do a margin X auto to center it. We'll give it a border with some padding. A little more padding on medium breakpoints. Width of 72, except on medium breakpoints, which we'll do a width of 96. Again, using Tailwind CSS here, just to speed it up a little bit, and a height of 84. Now if we go to the friends page, see this little container, so we'll put everything inside of that. Start with an H1, say find friends. Make it a little bold. And the same color as the border. We'll add a horizontal rule and just give that some margin bottom 3 and close that horizontal rule. Okay, looking good. And then we can just stack the usernames below that. So we'll do an unordered list. We'll break into some JavaScript here. We'll take those usernames and then map over those. And so for each one, we'll give it a placeholder of username, and we'll also want to get the index to give each item a unique key. And so for each username, we will return a list item inside this unordered list. And the key, the unique key, will give that the index number. And we will display the username. Go ahead and style this real quick. Text large, we'll make that white text. Width of fit, that'll be for making those clickable. And we'll also want to, on hover, turn the cursor into a pointer. Save that, let's check that out. Okay, looking good. And so now we'll want to fetch these users from the database and actually display the correct ones. And that'll be all the users in the database that the user is not currently friends with. So for our find friends page here, we're going to need to use effect to make an API call when we render this page, and use state to manage some local state. We want to import use selector from React Redux, and that'll grab the username of the user that is signed in, which we're keeping in our global state, which we set up in a previous video. And lastly, we want to import Axios. And then instead of this hard-coded list of usernames, for now we're going to do the username of the user that signed in, which we will get with use selector. We'll access our state, and then we're going to do the auth slice of our state, and then access the user inside of that. So in our store here, we're using Redux Toolkit. We have the auth slice, which we have the user, which we're saving the username to, and the auth slice is being saved as auth. So that's where we're getting the auth here, and then the user inside of the auth slice. Do use state here. This will be the users that we're getting. We'll say set users, which will be an empty array by default until we fetch some users. We're doing the error, do a little bit of error handling here. And so we set error, which will be null by default. Then we can call our use effect. With our dependency array. And inside this use effect, we will do our axios.get. So we'll call out when they go to the find friends page, we'll make this API call to our database and our server to fetch those users. And so for now, that's going to HTTP localhost 8080. And then we will create a path called find friends. We're going to pass some params, which is an object where the key and the value are both equal to username, which is the username of the user that signed in, which we're saving there, and then sending to our server. So do a dot then, and we'll get a response. We'll have a temporary usernames array, and we should get an array of users from our backend, which we will save to this usernames array here. So we'll have response.data, and we can kind of see what we're working with. So let's see, I'll go ahead and console.log that for now. .catch, do set error, and we'll just hard code one for now. I like to do this little emoji here. Save that. Usernames is not defined. That is here because we removed that for now. There we go. We just got some warnings because we haven't set those yet, which is fine. And so let's go ahead and start building out this find friends route on our server. So Closing the React project, opening the Node Express project, index.js. We have our sign up route, sign in. And this will be not a post request, but a get request. And we're defining that route as find friends. We'll have a request and a response. So we'll say username equals request. And now typically we do request.body, but since we're doing a get request, I had to do request.query.username, which that is what we're sending here with this get request and the params username. So that's how we're getting that. There. We're going to save it to username. And then this is where we would do our database.query to make the query for our database. But let's think about how we want to do this. It's going to be, we want to select all the users that are not friends of the user. So we can go into MySQL Workbench and kind of work out this query. This is going to be kind of a nested query. So let's see, go to MySQL Workbench. So we have our Music Talk database, which we created in a previous video. We have our tables. And we can kind of make our test query in here. But let's see, we have our friends table. And we have the users table. To show you that real quick. So we're hashing the password and saving that in the database correctly. And then so each user has a user ID and a username. And then in the friends table, hit this query all button there. So we don't have any in the friends table yet. So first of all, let's go ahead and create some users. We can do right in here. User ID 13. User ID 14. Let's put a whatever password for these. Looney Tunes, get it? Oh boy. Okay, so that's good enough for now. And then in the friends table, so we're signed in as Music Man, which the user ID is 12. So friend ID is whatever. It'll be unique. The user is 12, that's the user that's signed in, and then they're friends with another user. So we'll say 13. So this is a user ID that points to the user table that's user that signed in. So that's the user ID. And then the friend also points to the user ID of the users table, which represents a user as well. So we are user ID number 12. We are friends with Jazz, who is user ID 13. And we'll also say we're friends with Beethoven. That's a good deal. So we are user 12, and we are friends with user 14. Let's just do that one. So we're friends with Jazz. The rest we are not friends with, so we'll be displaying those other usernames all of them but Jazz. So I did this to the users table. I need to hit apply, and we'll insert all these users in the database. SQL script was successfully applied to the database. And you could also just, use the app and sign up with these different usernames as well to put them in the database. And then doing this one manually too for testing purposes. This will make us friends with that Jazz. So it's putting in these empty ones. Delete row. Delete row. Now apply. Okay, so we're entering music talk, database, the friends table, and yeah, just that one entry. So that's good. Okay. And I was going to do the database query here and then add it to the server-side code, but the syntax is slightly different in here, so I'll just go ahead and do it in the server-side code. And I may reference this friends table. But now you have a better idea of what we're going for here. So we want to select the username from the users table, which we're shorthanding it to the letter U, and that's how we're able to do this u.username. And we want to select the usernames where the user ID is not, and then we want to select from the friends table, the friend, which is the user ID, from the friend table where user is equal to, and then one more, and then I'll explain this giant nested query. Select the user ID from the users table where the username is equal to, and then we'll pass in that username that we're getting here, the user that signed in. So we want to select the user ID of the user that signed in. Okay, so remember, we're selecting the users that are not friends with the user. So we're going to select all the usernames from the users table where the user ID is not, and then in the friends table we're selecting the user with the ID of the user that is logged in. So if we go back to our tables here, we want a list of usernames which are represented by user IDs, and we want all of the usernames of all the people that are not friends with the user. So essentially we want all of the usernames that are not the usernames of the IDs of the people in this column that are friends with this user. But actually the user itself will also be in this list of usernames because the user is not friends with themselves. So we have to tack on one more little thing, and then I swear it's done. So and username is also not equal to question mark, which is the username of the user that signed in. So one more time here, because I know it can be hard to follow. We're selecting the usernames from the user table where the user ID is not, And then we're selecting the friends from the friends table where the user ID is equal to the user that's logged in. And so we'll select the user ID from the users table where the username is equal to the logged in username, which we're sending to the route. And this will give us back all of the usernames that are not equal to the users that the user is already friends with. But the user's own username will also be included since they're not friends with themselves. So we want to add the and username is not equal to the username that's signed in. And so there's 2 question marks in that query, which represent the username. We're escaping those to prevent database injection attacks. And both those question marks represent the username that we're sending in. So that's why there's an array with 2 usernames here, one for this part and one for this part. And then for this database query, we'll either get an error or a result. And we'll say if there's an error, do response.status 418, which is a funny error. You'll have to see the previous video to see what that's about, but it's a real thing. We'll just say an error occurred with my emoji move here. And then if there is a result, we will send that result. So we'll save that and say a prayer. And since we updated this server file, we're going to have to close the server and start it up again, which I believe will log me out again. Nope, looks like I'm good. So go to the profile, I'm logged in. If I go to the friends, that should have fetched. So that's that 418 error. I'm a teapot. Very funny. And I already see what I did. We're selecting friend from the friend table, but it's called the friends table. Hopefully that's the only mistype I had there. Restart the server. Hey, there we go. So if you look at this array, is an array of objects. We have username and we have all of the users that we are not currently friends with. So we were friends with Jazz, and then we also excluded our own username, which is Music Man. So this is looking good. And now we just want to display those. So in our find friends here, it's not letting me uncomment it. So this response.data is an array with the different usernames in it. We want to add that to this usernames array that we created. So we'll do response.data, and then we'll do a for each loop for each item in that array. Give the placeholder of each item in that array as user, and then this usernames array above us in the line above. We'll do a usernames.push, and then we'll do the user, which is the object in the username property of that object, which will be the username itself. So iterating over each one, over each user, and for each one we are pushing a username into this array for each one. And then we will set users up here to this usernames array here. And we will also set error to null if there is one. And then since we're using the username, it's in our state inside our use effect, we want to add that to our dependency array. And then let's see, we have this set users here, which we're setting here. It's an array of users. So instead of usernames, we'll say users.map. We can still use username as the placeholder. And then this all still looks good. It should work the same. Close that bracket there. And then we also want to display the error if it exists, which we're also doing on the sign up page. It's already styled the same and everything, so I will just go ahead and grab that. And so if there is an error, we will display it styled like so. And if it's false, if there's no error, we will not render anything. Save that. And there we go. There's our list of users. Okay, so that's looking good. In the next video, we will do another link here that says to your friends, and we'll let them actually add users to the database and save that relationship. And then they can click find friends, or they can click your friends link here and then see the list of friends that they're friends with. And then also in future videos, we'll let users post a post about music, and then any users that the user is following will display posts from those users. So all kinds of good stuff to come, so stay tuned. If you haven't already, feel free to like and subscribe, and thank you very much for watching. I will catch you in the next one.